Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today, we find ourselves as savvy business tycoons trying to produce the most valuable commodities in an ever-changing marketplace. We'll then use those commodities to build towns or sell them at the best price to secure great profits. You'll also be trying to win auctions for railroads or buy new buildings that bring power-ups and bonuses. Raccoon Tycoon is for 2 to 5 players, takes 60 to 90 minutes to play, is for ages 14 and up, and published by Forbidden Games. Today, we'll be doing a rule school where I'll teach you how to set up and play so that you don't have to read the rulebook yourself. Now, I've placed timestamps below me in the description of this video just in case you want to jump to a specific section of the rules. Well, without further ado, let's get started. Raccoon Tycoon is a strategy game for 2 to 5 players, where you'll be getting points by winning auctions and collecting sets of different railroads. The more of these you have, the more points you'll get. You'll also be looking to spend commodities to build towns, which will get you points. You'll also be purchasing buildings, which get you points and also allow you to have abilities that break the rules of the game. 6 different commodities are going to be fluctuating up and down in the market, and you're trying to find the right time to sell them to make as much money as you can to get those railroads. And you'll be using hand management to decide when to play the cards you have in order to produce and gather the different commodities for your strategy. So it's a game that has adorable artwork and has deep strategy without having complex rules, and it gives you a lot of replayability going down different paths depending on which buildings you purchase. So let's see if you can build the right sets of railroads and enough towns to win the game. To set up, first take the game board, put it in the middle of the table where everyone can easily reach it. Next, you're going to find the deck of the price and production cards, shuffle them up, and make a draw deck just to the side of the board. Each player is going to get 3 of these cards. Players can look at their cards, but they don't want to show them to any of the opponents. Also next to the board, you're going to set up the money so that there are stacks of the different denominations available. Then you'll give each player $10. Next, you'll find the wooden components for the 6 different commodities in the game, and you'll place them in piles like this off to the side of the board. You'll then take 1 of each of these commodities, and you'll place those in the bottom slot of each of the corresponding columns. For example, wood, wheat, iron, coal, goods, and luxury, just like that. These are going to be the starting prices of these commodities. Next, you're going to assemble the railroad deck, and this will differ depending on the amount of players. If you're playing with the full complement of 5 players, you'll simply shuffle all of these cards and you'll have your railroad deck. If you're playing with 4 players, you'll find all of the cards that say Skunk Works Railroad, and you'll completely remove them from the game. If you're playing with 3 players, in addition to removing the Skunk Works cards, you'll also remove all of the Tycoon Railroads as well out of the game. And if you're playing with 2 players, in addition to removing the Skunk Works and the Tycoon Railroad cards, you'll also remove all of the Sly Fox Railroad cards out of the game, putting them back in the box. Then once you assembled that railroad deck and you've shuffled it, place it on this railroad deck, and you're going to take the top 2 cards and put them face up on these 2 railroad spots, just like this. Next, locate the green town cards, and you're going to separate these cards out in different point values. There's values of 2, 3, 4, and 5. There's actually 4 cards in each of these different point denominations. If you're playing with 2 players, you will take any 1 card from each of these stacks and remove them from the game, put them back in the box, you won't need them. If you're playing with 3 to 5 players, you'll use all of these cards. Regardless if you're playing with 2 players or more, at this point, you're going to take all of the cards that have the 5 points, you're going to shuffle those up, and you're going to place them down just like this. You're going to take the 4 points, which is the next most, you'll shuffle them up, place them right on top of the 5s. You'll take the 3s, shuffle those up, and you'll place them right on top of the 4s. And finally, you'll take the 2-point ones, shuffle them up, and place them right on top. So they're going to go in order in points from 2 through 5 all the way through the deck. And then you'll take that stack of cards, place it on the town deck spot on the board, and take the top card and flip it over and put it in this town spot. And it always should be a 2-point card based upon how we set up the deck. Next, you're going to find the 7 bonus building tiles. Now these are easy to see because they all have the B in the upper right. That stands for bonus tile or bonus production. Now there's going to be 7 of them. You're going to take the one that says machine shop on one side and watermill on the other side. You're going to take this, put it on the machine shop side, and place it in the stack of all the other building tiles. You'll be shuffling all these up in just a moment. Now you're left with only the 6 basic commodity bonus building tiles. Now make sure that all of them are on the +1 side. These are double-sided, and one side says +1, the other side says +2. Make sure they're all on the +1 side like this. You're going to shuffle these up, and you're going to draw 4 of these. You're going to place those 4 on the spots that say building on the bottom of the board. The 2 basic tiles that you did not select randomly get removed from the game and placed back in the box. Then shuffle up all of the building tiles, keeping in mind the machine shop is double-sided, but you want to have it the machine shop up, and you're going to shuffle these all together into one stack. You are then going to place that stack right where it says building stack, just like that. The start player is chosen randomly, and that player will get the starting player token, which is this really cool raccoon. And then that first player is going to be able to take any one single commodity of the 6 that are available and place it in front of them. Now going around in clockwise order, each player to the left will get 1 more commodity. For example, the second player will get 2 commodities, the third player 3, the fourth player 4, and the fifth player 5th. Keeping in mind that no player can start with any 2 of the same commodities, they all have to be different. The object of the game is to have the most points in the end, and you'll be doing this by gathering railroads where these cards are going to be worth a certain amount of points. The more you get of the same type, the more points they're going to be worth. You'll also be getting points by getting towns and pairing those towns with a railroad, and you'll also be getting points for having buildings. We'll go over the details of that later. And you'll be gathering those cards by buying them in auctions or spending resources, and you're going to be buying and selling goods, trying to buy them at low prices and then selling them at high prices to give you the money in order to do that. The game is played in clockwise fashion, starting with that first player. Each player is going to take 1 action, then the next player clockwise will take an action and take their turn. This will continue throughout the entire game in clockwise manner. Now there's 5 different actions you can possibly take for your only single action on your turn, because remember you're only taking 1 action. The first one is production. If you remember, everyone has these 3 production cards, and you can select which one you'd like to play. Now when you do so, you're going to get production of the goods that are on these cards. Now by default, you only collect any 3 of the goods. So if this was the card I played, I would collect all 3 of them. If this was the card I played, I'd have to select which 3 of the 4 goods I would get. If I played this card, I'd have to select which 3 of the 5 goods I would get in production. Remember, you're only getting 3 by default. We'll show you later how that can change with different elements of the game. So let's say I selected this one. Remember, I can only take any 3 of these. Let's say I take 1 luxury, and let's say I take 2 coal. So I would take 1 of these and 2 of the coal and place it in front of me. Now by default, you can only hold up to a maximum of 10 commodities by default. We just took these 3, and we had the 1 to start with as the starting player. If you have more than 10 at this point, you must discard down to 10 by putting some into the general supply. Now there are some buildings that will allow you to hold more, but we'll talk about those later. Next, you're going to increase the price for all the commodities in the price section of the card. In this case, wheat and luxury. So each of those will go up on the tracks by $1. Not bad, because we just took 1 of these and the price has just gone up from that price increase. Then you'll place that card in a discard pile next to the price and production draw deck, and you'll draw back up to your maximum, which by default is 3, which is how many you started the game with. There are ways to have a bigger hand, but we'll talk about that with different buildings later. Now remember, you're only taking 1 action, and it's the next player's turn clockwise, but I'm going to go over all the other actions you can take. Another thing you can do is sell a commodity, and you can sell as many commodities as you have of a single type. For example, let's say I had 4 luxuries that I wanted to sell. I could sell all 4 of these at the price that this indicator is at. So I could sell as many of these. I could sell 1, 2, 3, or 4 of these if that's all I had, and for each of those, I'll get that much money. Let's say I wanted to sell all 4 of them. I would sell all 4. 4 times 7 would be $28 I would take from the bank, and this will go down a number of spots equal to the number that I've sold. So in this case, if I sold all 4, these would go to the supply, and this would go down 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. Another possible action is to start a railroad auction. To do that, you select one of the two face-up railroad cards and put it up for auction. Let's say we selected this Top Dog Railroad. Now, starting with this player who took the action, they will start the bidding. The minimum bid is in the bottom right-hand corner. So this one at $6, this one it would be $4. So us taking this action would have to bid at least 6. Then it will go clockwise around through all the players. Each player can either bid higher than the previous player or pass. If they pass, they are out of the auction for this specific card. Once all players except one have passed, whoever had that highest bid pays that amount to the bank from their supply. You can never bid more than how much money you have, and they would take this card and place it in front of them. And remember, with these railroad cards, this is a main way of getting points by collecting multiples of the same type and getting more points at the end of the game. This will then get refilled by the top card of the railroad deck. Now, if the player who took the action to put this up for auction did not win the auction, they get to take any action as their turn. Essentially, they're getting another turn if they did not win it. They can use that turn to also put up another one of these cards for auction. This will continue until either they've won an auction, if that's the action they've selected, or after they've taken any of the other actions. If you're playing with 2 players, the player who started the auction for the railroad only gets 1 bid, and then the other player can either outbid them or pass. Another possible action is to purchase a building tile. You can purchase any one of the 4 ones that are face up in this spot of the board. Now, how much you pay is going to be listed on that tile. For example, if you wanted to buy this vineyard, you would have to spend $6 from your account and pay it to the bank. Let's say we did that. This would come off like this and would be put in front of us, making sure that it is the +1 side always on these beginner tiles. Then this would get refilled from the stack just like that. Well, what do these building tiles do? Well, these bonus production tiles with the B's on them give you an extra production of something. So on a future turn, when you take a production action and you play a card, again, normally you're getting any 3 of these. You're always going to get those 3, but in addition, you'll always get this. So in this case, I'm always going to get one of these luxuries from this when I produce, but I can also take any 3 from here. So I could take the wood, the wheat, and the coal, and a luxury, or maybe I'll take a wood, a coal, a luxury, and a +1 luxury. Now, if you have more than one of these bonus tiles, you only can use one of these per production. So I couldn't take these 3 and then both of these. You have to choose which one to take. Also, when purchasing a building, if you have one of these bonus tiles, instead of purchasing one of the ones on the board, you can upgrade this from a +1 to a +2 by spending the amount on that +2 side. So I could spend 15 and have this flipped over. Now when I produce, I'm going to get 2 luxury. Another important aspect about these buildings is for every building that you have, it increases your maximum commodities that you can hold. Remember, by default, you can only hold a maximum of 10 commodities, but for each building you own, you can hold 1 more. So having this one building, we can now hold up to 11 and 12 if we had another one, and so on and so forth. The last of the 5 actions that you can possibly take, remember you're only taking 1 on your turn, is to purchase a town with commodity tokens. These are shown here. So to get the molehill, you can either spend 2 iron from your supply and put it into the general supply, because it says 2 iron, or any 4 commodities. Now these 4 commodities could be any, so it could be a mix, some of them could be the same, all of them could be the same, it doesn't matter, any 4 commodities or what's listed here. Now when you do that, you'll take this and place it up in front of you, and then this will get refilled by the town deck. Now these are important because they're going to be worth points. Again, they're going to be worth more points later in the game, and they're going to be worth even more points when you pair them with railroads. We'll go over that in the final scoring section in just a minute. Now, this will continue going in clockwise motion, with each player taking 1 action until either the last railroad card is auctioned or the last town is purchased. At that point, this will be the last round and everyone gets equal amount of turns, so the player with the last turn of the game is the one sitting just to the right of the first player. Then we move on to final scoring. The first thing you'll do is score your railroads. Here we see we have a set of 3 of the Top Dog Railroad. Now, you'll get amount of points equal to however many cards you have. If I only had 1 of these, I'd get 4 points. If I had 2 of them, those 2 would be worth 9 total, but here we have 3 of them. So these 3 cards as a total set is worth 15 points. Now that's not for each of them. This whole set of 3 cards as a total is worth 15. If we had had a 4th one of Top Dog, it would have been worth 23. But in this case we have 3, so it is worth 15 points. Now over here we have a single Fat Cat Railroad, so it's worth 3, and a single Tycoon Railroad worth 4. So between these two, that's 7, and between here, which was 15, so we have 22 points right now. Then you're going to score your towns. You're going to get face value for each of these towns. 2 points for this one, and 5 points for this one, so now we're at 29. And if you're able to match these towns up with a railroad card, you'll get an additional 2 points. So this one is matched up with this one is matched up with this, so 2 points here, 2 points here, that's 4 more points. So now we're at 33 points. And when matching those up, they only get matched up with one, and they have to get matched up with a card that's not already matched up with another town. For example, if we had had 3 more towns, we could have gotten an additional 2 points for each of those towns, as long as they're matched up with a railroad card that's not already matched up with a town. And then you'll get 1 point for each of your buildings. We had 33 points, so that's 34, 35, 36, and 37. Also keep in mind, some buildings might gain you extra points, like this Rail Baron, which gives you 1 point for each railroad, and in this case there are 5 railroads, so that's 5 more points, added to the 37 we had, so that's a total of 42 points. Whoever has the most points is the winner. If it's a tie, the one with the most money wins, and if it's still tied, those players share the victory. We're not going to go over what all the buildings do, because they're clearly listed in the appendix on pages 14 and 15 of the rulebook. However, there are a few I want to point out for you. There's 3 tiles that have P in the upper right. That stands for production building tiles. And much like the bonus tiles, you can only use one of these. So if you own more than one, you can only use one. For example, this gives you a max production of 4 instead of the 3 goods that you typically take when you're producing. Now you can take more, either 4 or 5 if you have any of those. But again, you can only use one of these on a turn. And the other tiles I'll show you, some of them I mentioned a little bit about earlier, like the black market. Now instead of having 3 cards of the price and production cards in your hand, you can actually hold 5 of them. And then normally you can only store 10 commodities. With the warehouse you could store an additional 3. The machine shop was the only tile that was double-sided that was shuffled into the building tile deck, and this works just like all the other bonus tiles where you'll start with the +1 and it gives you any 1 commodity, but you could also purchase the other side by spending this, and now you can get +2 any once per turn. Well, I hope this helped you dive right into Raccoon Tycoon and get to the fun quicker than you normally would if you had to read the rulebook yourself. Now, if you have further questions about the rules, I've placed a link below me in the description of this video, and that's the best place to ask them, since I'll be notified, but so will Forbidden Games.